It has been 6 eventful months since this government took power, riding on the weight of public expectations. President Adama Barrow is under no illusion that the going will be tough given what has transpired in the last 2 decades. It will not take long before the country is restored politically, economically, and socially.
I think the last 6 months was very challenging. But as a nation, I think we have made significant progress because we inherited from a government that have been here for 22 years, a dictatorial regime. Inheriting from such a government, you expect a lot of difficulties. Even appointing the cabinet is a balanced cabinet. You have a mix of politicians and technocrats. That is helping us a lot in doing our work.
The coalition of 7 political parties and the independent candidate had defied the odds to evolve into a strong and formidable force, ready to challenge the APRC's firm grip on power. Under the leadership of Adama Barrow, who until now was politically unknown, the coalition set on its campaign across the country to garner support amongst Gambians who have been frustrated by the gross incompetence and excesses of the APRC leader Yahya Jammeh, who leaned more towards tribal politics. The Gambia had suffered serious deficiencies in the fields of human rights and basic freedoms, and needed radical changes to reform the governance machinery and re-establish relations with neighbors and partners. Therefore, coalition leaders kept to a consistent campaign strategy, urging Gambians to vote for change in order to save the country from imminent socio-political and economic collapse. The departure of one former president gave way to the arrival of the new one. It had been a challenging month of political uncertainty, but common sense and the resolute resolve, backed by threats of military force, led to a peaceful resolution. Barrow returned to a hero's welcome and immediately made his presence felt by ordering the mass release of political prisoners. Earlier, the highest profile political prisoners were released after the court dropped their politically motivated charges. The new president was intent on delivering on his campaign promise of ending arbitrary arrest and detention of all political detainees.
If you look at the area of justice, we have made a lot of progress in the area of justice. We have Gambianized the judiciary, appointing a highly qualified Gambian like the Chief Justice, Hassan Jallo, who is a household name and internationally recognized, and a human rights lawyer for that matter. It was a brave decision. And the minister likewise appointing 6 Gambian justices, and half of them are women. I think that was significant. I think we have fulfilled some of the promises that we made during the campaign.
The new political dispensation also prioritized press freedom as an indispensable tool in the Gambia's resurgence as a democratic country, where journalists would be free to work and engage in a divergent discourse without fear of being harassed, imprisoned, or liquidated by the state or its agents.
We want to be very friendly to the media. The media is very important. With the media, you can go forward, get information, get enlightened.
This government is definitely committed to press freedom. This has been made quite clear by His Excellency President Barrow during the campaign, as well as when he came to power. It has always been emphasized that this government is very much committed to press freedom, and there is no way we can compare, what we have achieved so far as press freedom is concerned to what was achieved during the Jammeh regime. So I can assure you that we are very much committed on it. As part of our commitment to press freedom, we intend to undertake a lot of media law reforms. That is one of the objectives of the ministry. We are already in consultation with the Ministry of Justice to kind of review, look at the press laws that exist in our law books and the Constitution, and then see how best we can be able to reform those laws so that they can, be in line with best practices in other countries. Definitely, it is an objective. We have already started the process in consultation with not only the Ministry of Justice, but with the Gambia Press Union, as well as the other stakeholders. We are looking at all the laws that exist at the moment and see how we can be able to reform some of those laws to bring them in line with best practices in other parts of the world.
The task at hand required urgent, practical, and decisive actions to actualize the transformative agenda of the new government. It called for a radical overhaul of the entire governance structure, and the President assembled his cabinet composed of politicians and technocrats. Additionally, President Barrow replaced the heads of most government prostitutes, appointed new governors, and named a number of ambassadors at large to re-engage the international community.
When we talk about regional governors, their responsibility should be that of the main focal point for all central government agents at the divisional level. They should be in charge of all government events and activities at that level, plus their responsibility in the area of regional governance, that is traditional administration, local administration. People with that type of responsibility cannot be part of party politics.
The new cabinet has the difficult task of formulating a coherent government policy to change the lives of the people.
As we pledge to engage in institutional and legal reforms, I urge you to work hard for us to achieve a goal as a government and leave a legacy for a situation of institutional and laws that will transform our country into a full-fledged democracy and facilitate a social, economic, and political development for our people in the new Gambia.
This package of reforms also targeted the civil service, which had been severely purged by the former president and rendered largely ineffective as a result of interference.
Even at normal times, and for normal institutions in court, the fast changing nature of politics, economics, and social structures dictates that public service institutions need to be regularly reviewed so that they remain relevant and responsive to their contemporary challenges and realities of our time. I'm sure we all know that these are not normal times for the Gambia. We are emerging from a long spell of authoritarianism, which has greatly distorted and polluted the civil service environment. We are all aware of the excessive executive interferences of that time in the civil service, which has led to the flight of qualitative human capital from the system. Quite a number of capable, well-experienced, educated, and determined civil servants left the country because of that era. And that era also had led to the increase of political patronage and politicization of the civil service, as well as many other vices associated with totalitarianism. In effect, this has led to has significantly dented the productive capacity of the civil service.
The new government faced as many challenges on the international stage as it had on the domestic front. The Gambia had lost most of its traditional partners and friends, and it now fell on President Barrow to restore relations. Barrow had played host to a number of high-ranking officials from the United Nations, the European Union, the African Union, and ECOWAS. Officials from the Bretton Woods institutions also visited the country to offer financial and structural support.
As a new government, what we have inherited is an economy that is virtually bankrupt and in need of immediate rescue. This sad reality was brought about through a mismanagement of our finances. What is truly scaring is that our reserves are down to about 2 months of imports. Our debt burden reached unsustainable level due to wasteful public spending.
Government will ensure macroeconomic stability and put in place appropriate legal structures for private sector growth and reduce the regulatory burden on firms and enterprises. The private sector is not just the engine of growth, but forms the foundation for sustainable development by creating jobs, providing goods and services, stimulating innovation, and generating tax revenue. The government will therefore be committed to making the business environment more competitive and strengthen the relationship between the public and the private sector to enhance trade and investment in the economy.
The President undertook a European tour which took him to France and Belgium, which is the seat of the European Union.
Unfortunately, we had imposed on ourselves, isolation. We had isolated ourselves from the international community. We have abandoned the practices that are internationally accepted, and as such, we lost our position, our respect, and our dignity among the Committee of Nations. So it is when we came to power, we found that it is absolutely necessary to rebrand the Gambia, to really, as it were, polish our image so that we are accepted, in the fold of the international community. And I'm happy to say that we have really, well, people will judge. I think we have made significant progress in that direction.
The government also signed a cooperation agreement with Senegal, covering various sectors such as fisheries, diplomacy, and defense.
This agreement strengthens bilateral defense and security cooperation by adapting it to emerging challenges. This agreement on tourism will make it possible to develop interstate tourism and promote integrated tourism between the two countries. This agreement on consular assistance revises the 1973 Consular Assistance Protocol with a greater emphasis on consular representation in third countries. Draft agreements on areas such as justice, fisheries, transport, and forestry was discussed and will be finalized, as well as other draft agreements that will be submitted later with a view to their rapid finalization within the coming weeks and months.
Meanwhile, the European Union, as the Gambia's main development partner, made good on its promise to help the new government stand on its feet by signing a trade agreement that marked the first tangible support and signaled a statement of intent in EU-Gambia relations.
The European Union, the UN, the World Bank, all of them are committed to Gambia, and their commitment is yielding a lot of results for us. We're able to get budget support, and there are a lot of financial support that have been given to my government. And I think that is a vote of confidence.
His Excellency Adam Barrow took over this country in an economic state which no finance minister would have desired. The country was in an actual state of almost economic collapse, in the sense that it had very low reserves, less than 2 months of imports. The debt situation was alarming at 120% of the GDP, at about $48 billion. And this absorbs over 40% of our revenue that the country generates in interest payments and the payment of these debts as they mature. So this actually leaves very little for the government to finance its operations, paying the staff and other expenses.
An inauguration of a new ferry, state-of-the-art ferry, that crosses between Bara and Banjul it takes 18 minutes. I think that will also ease the problem of the North Bank. There is a significant improvement in that area. The inflow of investors in this country have significantly improved prices in this country. Prices have started going down. If you look at the petrol, the price today, you cannot compare it to prices for the past 5 years. I think for the last 5 years, prices didn't get to that level. And we still believe that the prices will go down. I think the government also have made progress in stabilizing our economy. The dollar is also gaining momentum against the foreign currency. It's also significant, it's important. So overall, I think we have made significant progress.
To help consolidate the gains so far achieved, it is imperative that there exists a robust security environment in the country. Therefore, the economic forces that have been in the Gambia, at the invitation of the government, had their mandate extended.
ECOMIC is here as a multilateral force subject to specific protocols. Our security condition is stabilizing, and the mandate of ECOMIC specifically is intended to protect the government, protect the presidency, help the country in achieving a reasonable state of security and stability and peace, and it is achieving that goal. The job is not yet done. Security is essential, it is key. Without security, no nation can afford to get its program to any reasonable amount of fruition. And that is why the Gambia government, through His Excellency the President, determined that the extension of the mandate of ECOMIC would be fundamental and instrumental in one, ensuring that the security situation of the Gambia can be further crystallized. And number two, to consolidate our nascent democracy, enable us build our institutions, and at the same time assert the authority of the government over its sovereignty.
The government expressed its desire to return to the Commonwealth after the country was unceremoniously withdrawn by former President Jammeh. This also paved the way for the renewal of relations with the United Kingdom, which equally reciprocated by lifting the ban on tourism, which has severely affected the industry in the Gambia.
That decision was what kept the Gambia floating until up to this moment. In the absence of that decision, it would have been a complete disaster. Thank God that prior to President Barrow's inauguration, we were able to engage the British, the European Union, the Americans, and all other stakeholders And it was a high-level decision that was taken at the highest level in Great Britain. And I was involved in the process, and I know how long it took us, and indeed the action taken by the then British ambassador to the Gambia. It was a very positive move, and it contributed immensely to the restoration of Gambia's image. As you're aware that our image was battered, most people left this country, big tour operators left, and most other investors left for reason that was known to everybody. I mean, impunity was very much in place, and businessmen and investors wanted an atmosphere where justice will prevail. Indeed, upon the advent of the Barrow regime, it was the responsibility of the ministry to get back to everybody, to all the other stakeholders, both nationally and internationally, and to bring them back. We are happy to say that most of them are back, and these are major key players in the industry.
The Gambia and the People's Republic of China took their bilateral cooperation to another level with the signing of an agreement for the construction of an international conference center. These developments are all encapsulated in the new government's blueprint called the National Development Program, whose implementation is entrusted with the newly inaugurated national think tank.
Gambians have decided for change, a change that must bring solutions and rejuvenate our dying economy and failed policies. They have decided for change that must ensure the transformation of our political, education, and social systems to promote our values as one people with a history and identity, engaging through engagement of our local communities in nation building for unity and for development.
In order to inform Gambians of developments at the presidency and across government, the Directorate of Press and Public Relations at the Office of the President reaches out to various media houses through press releases and conferences to facilitate communication.
We're initiating this press briefing to reflect the President's commitment to a free flow of information to the public, between the public and his administration. This is because he believes in promoting freedom of expression and freedom of the media, which is very important tenet for him, especially as he had already promised during his campaign. He kept his promise by ensuring that through the media team under his office and the Ministry of Information, as you have been already informed, will be having regular interaction with the media.
We have made significant progress, and I promise you, the next 6 months will be a different thing completely. We are very, very, very confident. And with that confidence, we will not relent. This is a promise to the Gambian people. And we are committed to that promise.
Gambians will be looking keenly to the outcome of these policies and programs, hoping that it would improve their lives and livelihoods.
Never again shall this country return to those dark days of impunity and disregard of constitutional order. To achieve this, my government is determined to build strong institutions capable of transforming the state of this great nation from dictatorship to democracy and from despair to hope. We must take advantage of this unique diversity to turn it into a collective national strength for the betterment of all Gambians.
With what has already been achieved, the future looks promising.